Good afternoon. Welcome to Horton Brasses' second ever video blog post. Today I'm going to take you into our vault. My grandfather built this vault, and he built this vault very carefully. What he did was he used concrete blocks, he lined the blocks with rebar, and then he actually filled the blocks with additional concrete. The roof is concrete blocks, also filled. So why did he do that? The reason is that the tooling inside this vault is priceless and irreplaceable. So today I'd like to take you inside and show you what it is that we do and what we're making. So this is the inside of our vault. Inside of our vault is all of our traditional furniture hardware tooling. The hardware that we have in here, the tooling that we have in here is irreplaceable. The tooling itself, for the most part, was made by my great-grandfather, Frank Horton, in the 1920s and 30s. Now Frank was a die sinker by trade, and he worked in the silver industry here in Meriden, Connecticut, a couple towns away. My great-grandmother, Angeline, was an antique dealer, and when she needed a piece of hardware for a piece of furniture, she would simply give Frank an original, and Frank would make one. That tooling we still use to this day and is the basis for our traditional furniture hardware reproductions. So this tool, this particular tool, is our H30 1.5-inch Sheridan knob front. It also gets used as a mirror rosette. According to family lore, this is the very first tool that Frank made for my great-grandmother. So this is a particularly important tool. 75 odd years later, we still use the same tool. What Frank did as a die sinker is he would take an original piece of hardware and he would take a block of steel and he would sit there and he would carve the block of steel to match the pattern for the pull that we made. In this case, if you look very closely, you can see this pull is actually a flower pattern. So he would take the block and he would carve out the punch, and the punch would have every detail that he wanted to have in the final piece. Then he would make a wax mold, and then he would carve out the die, which is the exact same pattern in reverse, made just a little bit different to account for the thickness of the metal. Now Frank's specialty, and when it came to furniture hardware, was American Federal Period pieces. So what we're looking at here is what we would call a Hepplewhite or a Federal Period pull, in this case a knob. And hardware from this period was dated from the late 1700s to about the mid 1800s. And tool and die makers at that time were just discovered stamping. And what they discovered was that using, at the time, the newest technology, they could make incredibly detailed patterns and pulls. And that's what Frank did. So he copied those pieces from the early American cabinet makers and early American tool makers. So when we look at that particular piece of particular tooling, it made a particular knob, and that completed knob, once we've stamped it, made the backs, put it all together, and put all the finishing, we end up with our Sheridan knob, an 1.5-inch diameter knob. Over the years, Frank left us a legacy of tooling to make hundreds and hundreds of different pieces of hardware. And we still use that, and that's our legacy. And it's something that's irreplaceable, which is why we built this vault.
I hope you enjoyed the tour of our tool room. This has been another Horton Brasses video blog. Hope to see you again next time. Thank you.